Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. Can somebody just give me the thumbs up in the comments to let me know that you can see and hear me okay? Brilliant, thank you, Neil. Good to see you, Steve, and you, Rach, Paul, Joe, Josh. Good to see you all again. I can still see people arriving, but I do want to crack on because I've got a meeting straight after this live. I want to start with a simple question. What happens in your business when someone doesn't know what to do? What happens in your business when someone doesn't know what to do? Do they stop and think? Do they talk it through with someone else? Do they look for all the relevant information? Do they make a reasonable decision? Or do they immediately come and find you? Because if the answer to every unusual situation is ask the leader, then the business is still dependent on the leader. And that's what I want to explore today. Because for me, there's a big difference between delegating tasks and delegating judgment. And there's a big difference between someone being able to do the work without you and someone being able to make the decisions that go with that work without you. And this is where a heck of a lot of owner dependency often hides. So let me think of an example. Let's say you've got someone in your team that is perfectly capable of preparing a quote. They might know the process. They might know where to find all the information. They might know how to speak to the customer. They might be able to do 90% of the work without ever involving you. But then something slightly unusual happens, like the customer might ask for a discount. The expected delivery date can't be met. The spec might change. Your suppliers, the buggers, might go and put the prices up. It could be that a customer wants something outside of your normal process. When any of all things happen, they come back to you with a question. What do you think we should do? And that's the moment that you discover the work hasn't been fully delegated. The task might have moved, but the judgment still sits with you. And think about it. If the judgment always comes back to you, then you're very much still part of the process. Now, I want to be careful here because this is not about blaming your team. This is about, you often find that the problem is you've actually trained the team to ask you. Because someone comes to you with a problem, they ask, what should I do? And you know the answer, so you tell them. And then 30 seconds later, everything's moving again. And that feels efficient. It feels helpful. It feels like leadership. But when you do that, there's a hidden cost. Every time you answer a question that somebody could have thought through themselves, you're actually reinforcing their dependency on you. And they learn that when I'm unsure, ask the leader. And you as the leader learn that it's often quicker if I just tell them. Before long, that becomes the normal operating system of the business. Better known as, that's the way we do things around here. I think it's really worth repeating something that I said on last week's live. I think it was last week's live, because I think it really matters. If you keep answering every difficult question, people are going to become better at asking you. If you keep answering every difficult question, people are going to become better at asking you. And that's not the outcome you want. So what could you do instead? Well, how about the next time somebody asks you, what should I do? What if you were to slow down a little bit and resist the answer, the urge to answer the question immediately? Instead, try asking, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? Now, for me, that one question changes the whole conversation. And it opens up the possibility for you to ask further questions like, what options have you considered? What would you recommend? What do you think the risks are? What information are you using? If I wasn't here, what decision would you make? Now the conversation's changed and you're no longer simply supplying an answer. You're now helping that other person develop their own thinking. You're helping them develop their own judgment skills. You're helping them to become more capable. And that's a very different form of leadership. So the point here is not for you to become difficult. It's not for your people to feel unsupported. It's not for you to answer every question with another question just for the sake of it. There's still going to be times when someone genuinely needs your experience. There will be times when some of these decisions are high risk. There will be situations where the right thing is for you to step in. But for me, there's a world of difference between you supporting someone's thinking and you actually doing their thinking for them. And the truth is, if you choose to do their thinking for them, then you're going to forever be carrying that mental load. A lot of leaders that I know employ really good people, capable people, experienced people, people with perfectly functioning brains. But then they go and treat them like they're a pair of hands. The leader thinks, the team does. The leader decides, the team executes. The leader solves, the team waits. But doing all the thinking is going to be mentally exhausting for you. And when you become the place where every loose end lands, every unusual situation, every exception, every difficult customer, every judgment call, every problem that might sit outside of your normal process, after a while, you can often hear the leaders say, I just wish my people would think for themselves. But the real issue is you haven't actually given them permission to think for themselves. So one of the most valuable things any leader can do is stop simply teaching people what to do and start teaching them your thinking behind the decisions that you're making. Teach them why you make one decision, not another. What you're looking for, what matters most, what risks are you weighing up, what would lead you to say yes, what would make you say no, what principles are sitting beneath your decisions. Because if all that knowledge stays locked in your head, then your business becomes dependent on your head. And that in and of itself creates a ceiling. I think it's worth pointing out that the goal is not to remove your judgment, it's to multiply it. And for that to happen, people need boundary lines. They need to know where their authority begins and where it ends, because if that's unclear, they're going to feel a need to protect themselves, and they'll protect themselves by asking you. As a suggestion, you could use a really simple 3-level decision model, really creative 3-level decision model, green, amber, red, where green means you decide and act with no approval required. So these are decisions where the person has got enough knowledge, experience, and authority to move ahead without checking in with the leader first. So, for example, that could be if a customer moves a meeting, it could be making a small purchasing decision without or within an agreed budget. It could be a normal service recovery issue with a clear limit attached to it. It could be a standard operational change. The point is, do it, own it, move on. Then amber decisions could mean you decide, but you let me know what you've done. And this is really useful when someone's still developing their own judgment skills. And it allows them and you a degree of freedom while keeping a level of visibility. Best way of putting it, I think. Which means the message becomes, you don't need my permission, but I want to understand your decision afterwards. And that can be really useful as a stepping stone because it builds confidence in a person without the leader disappearing completely. And then you've got red decisions, and those can be discuss it with me before deciding. There's always going to be genuine things that deserve senior leadership involvement. And that could include things like major financial commitments, strategic changes, serious people issues, where there's a significant legal risk, a major customer problem, something that can materially damage the business. So those decisions do need to come back. And the objective isn't to remove the leader from everything. The objective is to stop involving the leader in things that don't genuinely require them. Imagine for a second you saying to somebody, right, from now on, you're responsible for dealing with customer complaints. Now, that might sound great, but can they offer a refund? Can they replace something? Can they spend money to fix the issue? Can they agree compensation? Can they make an exception to the usual process? Think about it. If they don't know the answer to those things, they're going to ask you. And that means that the task has been delegated, but the decision making hasn't. And that's why authority is a really vital step in the delegation process. Put your teeth in, Kev, because responsibility without authority creates frustration, and responsibility without boundaries creates fear. People need to know what they can decide, what they should tell you about, and what must come back to you. Now, a really brilliant idea that I came across recently was from the awesome executive VA, Lorraine Wallaby. And if you're in the market for an executive VA, I do highly recommend Lorraine and her team. Check them out. In actual fact, I was on a website just shortly ago. Let me just copy that URL and I will put it into the comments. You should have it there now. So if you're looking for a executive VA, highly recommend you check out Lorraine and her team. Lorraine's idea is to create a simple decision document, not a 50-page manual, not a massive policy document, just a living document that captures the decisions that the team can make and the principles used in making those decisions. These are the boundaries. These are the situations that need to come back to the leader. And then every time a new situation arises, instead of simply answer it and moving on, ask, do we need to add this to the decision document? Because if the same question gets asked more than 3 times, the problem is no longer the question. The problem is that the answer lives in one person's head. And that's exactly the thing that needs to be captured. This is also where something really useful can happen, because a repeated question can become a system. A repeated problem can become a rule. A repeated judgment call can become a decision principle. So instead of you getting irritated when someone brings something up to you again, you can use it as evidence that the business has not yet made the thinking visible. And that's a much more useful response. I think it's worth pointing out that you don't want a team that doesn't ask any questions, because questions are good. Questions can reveal risk. Questions can prevent mistakes. Questions can help surface opportunities. So the issue isn't whether people ask questions. The issue is what kind of questions they ask. And for me, there's a big difference between what should I do and them saying, having looked at all the options, I think we should do this for these reasons. And the main risk that I see is this. So are you comfortable with me going ahead? Now, for me, that's a much stronger conversation, and it's showing someone using their judgment. Also, as your team develops, your role needs to change too. So you need to move from answering to asking, move from deciding everything to defining decision boundaries, move from being the expert in the middle of every issue to developing expertise around you. move from solving today's problems to improving the way that future problems are handled. And that's how the business starts becoming less dependent on one person. So you might be thinking of asking what genuinely needs me instead of what can I do better than everybody else. But think about it. If that were the standard question, you'd probably still end up keeping everything. So a much better question is to ask what genuinely requires your experience, your authority, your ownership, and your judgment. And that list, by the way, should be a lot smaller than what most people think. Yeah, sure, there's still going to be times when you're needed, but not everything that currently comes to you necessarily should. Okay, here's your momentum move for this week. Over the next 7 days, every time someone asks you, what should I do? Slow down, let some air out the tires, resist the urge to answer immediately. So pause and ask, I don't know, what do you think I should do? I don't know, what do you think we should do? Then listen. Now, that word listen, it's a bit of an interesting word, that, and it's often misunderstood because I don't know if you know, but if you rearrange the letters in the word listen, you get silent. So stay still, because you might just be surprised to learn that they already know the answer. And a bonus is that you might discover, that they've got options that you never even thought of. You might even discover that they simply needed your permission to decide. And while we're on the subject, it would also be useful for you to keep a record of the questions that keep coming back. And then at the end of the week, review them and ask which of these decisions could my team own if I was to give them clear boundaries. And that's also the beginning of your decision document. Just as importantly, it's also the beginning of reducing leadership dependency. Okay, if today's session has had you recognise that you've delegated plenty of work already, but you still carried most of the thinking and the decisions, then perhaps it would be useful for us to have a conversation, because sometimes the problem isn't workload, the problem is decision load. And sometimes the owner has removed themselves from the task, but not from the judgment. And that can be just as exhausting. Now, in that conversation, we'll look at what genuinely needs you, what doesn't, where decisions are getting stuck, and where clear boundaries could free up your time to think more. No pressure whatsoever, just an honest conversation about what's happening in your business, what could change. And if that sounds useful, DM me or just follow the link I'm putting in the comments now. There you go. And we can arrange a time. So thank you for joining me again today. And remember, the goal isn't for you to build a team that never needs you. The goal is to build a team that only needs you for the things that genuinely require you. And the stronger the thinking of those around you, the less everything has to come back to you. So I will see you again, same time, same place next week. Until then, make sure you have a fun and really profitable time. Thank you.